Hey guys, Omni here. It has not been that long since news broke that Jamie Foxx was going to be returning to the role of Electro in Tom Holland's upcoming Spider-Man 3, making us kind of raise our eyebrows as to how that's going to, play into the story. And a lot of people, of course, naturally are speculating that maybe he's reprising his Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, since we know that the MCU is starting to dabble into the multiverse quite a little bit here. And, it very well could be just him playing a different version of Electro, much like J. Jonah Jameson is played by, yet again by J.K. Simmons. But it has been stated that this is not the same J.K. Simmons, of course, as he was in the Tobey Maguire series. So it could just be a simple, we like that casting choice, but we want to do something a little bit different. Let's bring in Jamie Foxx. Let's have him play a different version of Electro, and we'll go from there. Because the tweet from Jamie Foxx himself did say that, at least from what I've seen, I couldn't find it myself, so maybe he's deleted it by this point, that he won't be blue in this one. So it could just be him playing the same character, but a different take on that character. Or it could be spreading out into the multiverse, and he is reprising his role from The Amazing Spider-Man 2 as that Electro. So, it's very possible, given that we know that the MCU is heading towards this idea of the multiverse with Doctor Strange's second film, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which we know is tied into the WandaVision series. So there's something happening there that is kind of concerning and involving Doctor Strange, because from what we've seen in previous reports, he's also appearing in Wanda's show as this lead-in, and Wanda, of course, is going to be following him along his adventure at least as a core part in Multiverse of Madness. So there's two ways today's report can be interpreted. So today it was announced exclusively by THR that Benedict Cumberbatch is going to be in Spider-Man 3 as well. I think we could be adding further fuel to the fire that Spider-Man 3 is going to be dabbling in the multiverse, with Electro showing up, with Jamie Foxx as Electro showing up, Doctor Strange coming in here after having, depending on when these movies take place and are released, possibly have already been diving through the Multiverse of Madness, or maybe Multiverse of Madness is just the beginning. And we're going to see the effects of this meddling with the multiverse carry on through a number of films. I've heard some people talk about this, and what if the multiverse exploration happens over a course of films? Like you're seeing things take place in the MCU, but in different locations with different sets of characters, and that's how we're getting our new progression going forward. Or it could be something very simple and very practical, because the two people that Peter really kind of latched onto in Infinity War as they were going along their journey to face off against Thanos was Stephen Strange and Tony Stark. Of course, that kinship, that bond, that kind of two sides of the same coin, as we saw the butting of heads between the two seniors in the superhero world in that movie, both interacting with Peter. Of course, now with Iron Man gone, with Tony Stark out of the picture, maybe Stephen Strange, given they're all in the same city, maybe that's all he's there for, to kind of come in and fill in this mentorship role. Maybe he's there in the role of the mentor. Maybe he's there to provide advice. Maybe he's there to help Spidey in these situations, given what happened in their past, their relationship, and being one of the few Avengers still kind of hanging around the city and hanging around New York. Who knows? It could be something just simple like that. Nothing big, nothing crazy, but what I think that with where Marvel's going right now, with this emphasis on setting up this multiverse, as we know, with Loki getting away and creating a separate timeline, separate reality in which his show is going to take place, the What If series that eventually is going to be coming, Wanda creating these realities to live in, and I think WandaVision is where this is all going to kind of set everything into motion. Either their actions in Infinity War did by them meddling with time and space, the stones and everything, and branching timelines, uh, or Wanda is going to be the one that starts to break out. Maybe she creates the multiverse or at least breaks through into it. We know Evan Peters, who was Quicksilver in the Fox X-Men films, is going to be in WandaVision as an unknown role. The fun thing is to maybe think of him possibly reprising his role as Quicksilver from the Fox universe, but in the MCU films. Maybe them tapping into these sidelined movies that now no longer have any canon or any future to them. And maybe they, like I said in the previous video talking about Jamie Foxx, the multiverse gives them two ways they can do two ways. Yeah. Gives them multiple ways that they could look into this or utilize this as a way to kind of incorporate all these things that Disney didn't own up until recently. And it could be this amalgamation, this pulling in of items. You know, with whatever Wanda does to reality, we know that it's probably going to be one of the main reasons that the MCU finally has mutants, which is something that hasn't existed in the timelines up until recently when Disney acquired the X-Men properties from Fox with that purchase and that acquisition. And we'll see that somehow Wanda's going to tie that in and use this kind of House of M storyline to bring mutants into the MCU. And they could also do that rather than us. Now, here's the other way that this could be. She alters reality, of course. She peers into these alternate universes, the timelines, or along with her journey with Stephen Strange and Multiverse of Madness. And we could see like a Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of scenario where, you know, all these worlds existed and now are condensed into this one reality, this one Earth Prime, in this instance, 616 on Earth in the Marvel parallel, being condensed and combined. And we're going to see some faces we've seen before, maybe some of these elements from things that we have seen before in the past that are no longer there, like maybe Evan Peters' Quicksilver now exists in the MCU. Timelines are rewritten. Things are somewhat different, but a little bit the same. And we're going to see some things different, like mutants maybe now with Wanda's meddling have always existed. The timeline itself got rewritten. Now they've always been there. Or we're going to see like a starting point where they are birthed and now are part of the world and moving forward. And that allows them to bring in character, or at least explain away recastings like J. Jonah Jameson's played by J.K. Simmons popping back up, Jamie Foxx, who's previously played a character into that, coming over into this world and not really having you bat an eye at it. The changes that they're going to be doing with the upcoming Venom stuff, incorporating Tom Holland into those and bridging all that together, the involvement with Morbius. And it can allow them to kind of take the things that really worked about the things that they didn't quite have control on, incorporate it into the MCU with some reality bending. It could also open the door to bringing in also the canceled Netflix shows into existence. And, you know, it could also, the tampering with the multiverse, completely eradicate the ending of Spider-Man Far From Home, where he's a Spider-Man wanted for murder and on the run. Maybe that's his out. Maybe it's not going to need that lawyer, even though I'd like it to be that kind of simple way. But it seems like Spider-Man 3 is going to be it's starting to sound like it's going to be going down a much more complex path than we initially envisioned. It could, as for what we initially thought from the setup from Far From Home, was that it was going to merely be Spidey on the run and dealing with that and being on his own and trying to figure things out. And then maybe have this lawyer that they talked about come in, whether it be Matt Murdock or She-Hulk, come in and try to get him out of this situation and fight for him. And now it just seems like with Electro being announced, with Stephen Strange being involved in the movie, that it's opening the doors for some meddling with the multiverse, and maybe things are not going to be, some things are not going to be the way we thought they would be moving forward in the MCU. Again, it could just be kind of all blown out of proportions. It could just be Steven shows up and he's like, "Hey, Peter, you okay? Are you all right? Do you need anything? That's it. Here's some advice. I'm going to float away now. Could be it. Or the effects of Multiverse of Madness and WandaVision are bleeding into the other properties, as we also know that Kang is going to be in the next Ant-Man movie. There's some stuff happening, guys. I don't know. Maybe it's the tinfoil hat in me. Maybe it's the thing I'm seeing these pieces, these talks, these reshapings of events that are even happening between Disney and Sony, with them now having this joint custody of Tom Holland in a deeper way than they did before, now allowing Tom Holland and the characters that the MCU had access to branch off into the Spider-Verse that Sony was starting to build, because before that wasn't the case. They weren't allowed to do that. Spidey wasn't allowed to play with Venom. That's why the Venom stuff completely excluded him altogether, any references to him whatsoever. And now there's talks of them kind of teaming up. We've seen Morbius start to bleed into the MCU world that was built out, when previously before all that stuff was going to be separate. There's some big chess moves happening behind the scenes over there, and I think Spider-Man 3 might see the effects of whatever happens in WandaVision and whatever happens in Multiverse of Madness, and we're going to start to see that. And who knows? It's been said maybe we're going to get that fantastic crossover that has been pitched to Sony before, of joining Tom Holland with Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. I know some people are for it, some people aren't. But who knows? We're closer to that. Now, again, the other thing is we could just be seeing them Flash style hopping into different Earths, maybe as quick cameos, quick glimpses of these other realities parallel to the one that we've known. And that's all it is. It's all we see of it. Could be just, oh, hey, on that Earth, there's another you that is fighting Jamie Foxx and his Electro. Over here, we've got Tobey Maguire and Willem Dafoe hopping around doing their thing. And we're just seeing glimpses of it as like they're being shown these things. Maybe it's not going to have any real lasting effects on the Spider-Man film itself. I feel like it'd be a little bit of a cheat out if, you know, the multiverse happened, Stephen Strange showed up and altered reality and got Peter out of his situation of being wanted for murder. Though I do think that would be a really funny way and an ironic twist of fate, and at getting back at, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, because he lied about the multiverse. He's like, nah, that's just some bullshit I made up to kind of, because at this point, with everything that happened in the past couple of years, they'd got to believe that, you know, him fabricating this idea of the multiverse and then coming up with this elaborate way to frame Peter to be thwarted and undone by the fact that the things he was bullshitting about turned out to be true, and it wiped out all of what he did. I think that would be it would be cheap storytelling, but it would also be horribly ironic and poetic, as if only he was around, and maybe he is, to realize that that's how his plan gets undone by the realization that his lies were in fact truth. I don't know. Again, there's so many ways that you can speculate when it comes to trying to figure out where these companies are going to go with these stories that they are adapting from the comics, because they're doing their own thing, their own take on a lot of these stories. So while there's some things we know that they're leaning into from the comics themselves, there's also so much lore, so much ideas, so many concepts that they can pull from and use. It's really hard to kind of predict where these are going to go, how they're going to kind of incorporate all these things together, but you never know. And it's just fun to talk about because you can just spitball the craziest ideas. And because this is comic books, because this is magic, science, mysticism, fiction, it can be whatever you want it to be. And it who knows? And it could happen that way. It's fun to talk about. So with the announcement that Doctor Strange will be in Spider-Man 3, what are your all's thoughts? What are your all's theories? Let's talk about it after the video. Carry on that conversation. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I will catch you guys next time. Take care, everybody.